So today we are going to talk about PCOS prenatals and how to really tell if your prenatal is the best fit for you. There are hundreds, probably thousands of different brands and different versions of prenatals out there. And it can be kind of daunting to figure out which one really is the best fit for you. Why are they all different? What do you really need to be paying attention to? So we're going to cover all of that today and over the next couple of weeks. We're going to kind of dive into this topic to make sure that you're really optimizing this part of your preconception fertility plan. So, and to make this a little bit easier, I've created a spreadsheet for you that you can download that actually goes through all the different nutrients that you usually see in a prenatal, what those nutrients do in your body, like what those are doing to actually improve your fertility. There's a column for the specific forms of each nutrient. Next week, I'm going to do a video all about the different forms of nutrients because they are not all created equal, and it does matter what kind of each vitamin you're getting. So that's on the spreadsheet, and then there's also a place on the end where you can actually type in all of the data from your current prenatal and compare it to some of the really popular professional brands and see how it really stacks up. So there's a link in the description of this video if you want to grab that and you can check it out, see how your current prenatal stacks up. So if this is the first time you're seeing one of my videos, I'm Molly. I'm the nutritional therapy practitioner over at parsleyandpumpkins.com, where I teach women with hormonal imbalances and menstrual cycle disorders the simple shifts that they need to make in their diet and lifestyle to balance their hormones, have easy pain-free periods, and support their natural fertility. So you can connect with me over there. So let's talk about prenatals, because I'm sure all of you are taking one. If you're not, you should be. And this is a big part of your preconception plan, so we want to make sure you're getting this part right. So a prenatal vitamin really is just intended to fill in the gaps of your nutrition from whatever you're not getting for food, so that whenever you happen to become pregnant, your body has the nutrients that it needs in order to support your growing baby, right? So we all know folate. This is really important for some of the spinal issues that can go wrong with brand new babies. And so that part is really important to be getting in your prenatal, because those issues can happen, like your baby's brain and spine and nervous system are developing before you would ever even know that you're pregnant, right? And so that's what the purpose of a prenatal is, so that you have those nutrients. So even if you don't know you're pregnant yet, your body has what it needs to make sure that baby is healthy. So, but here's the thing, we all kind of have different nutritional needs. Like none of us eats the same foods, right? That is so true. We do not all eat the same foods. Even among people who eat healthy or consider that they do, we all have different preferences. So some people prefer eggs in the morning. You might prefer oatmeal in the morning. And that is going to change the nutrients that you're getting, especially when we're eating foods, over a long time. Like if hot oatmeal in the morning is your go-to during winter, that's important to take into consideration. So for example, the person who is eating eggs in the morning, who tends towards that preference, they're going to be getting a lot of choline in the yolks of those eggs, whereas they might be missing out on some of the minerals that you would find in oats, so things like copper or manganese. And so that person eating oats is going to be getting those minerals, but they're going to be lacking in the choline from eggs, right? So foods all have different nutrients in them. We all kind of get this, but it's a little bit difficult to really put this into practice. Like, how do we actually use that information in our daily life, right? So we're all getting these different amounts of nutrients, different types of nutrients, just from our preferences, what foods we gravitate towards. And each of our bodies is also processing and using those nutrients differently. This is the part that I think is so cool. And it's a little bit, it kind of takes some while to figure out what your body is really doing. You kind of need someone to help you with that part. But for example, let's say someone who goes on a jog every morning and your route happens to be along the highway, right? Maybe like here in Austin, the highway is raised up. And so you might be running underneath it, in what looks like this really nice green area, but there's a highway and all of this car exhaust next to you. So that person, because of that specific thing in their life, is going to need a lot more antioxidants in their food and in their prenatal than someone else who does not have those toxins. Same with like someone who works at a salon. You're going to be exposed to the chemicals for your nails, for your hair. If you're exposed to any of those things, your body is going to have a greater demand for certain nutrients than someone who doesn't have those exposures. A really common one too is anyone who's vegetarian or used to be vegetarian. There are some nutrients that are they're more abundant in animal foods, and so you're going to want to make sure that you're getting those in higher amounts in your prenatal. So things like B12, you're going to really want to prioritize in your prenatal, as opposed to someone who has always been a meat eater and they can get a good amount of that particular nutrient from their food. So this is why there are so many different kinds of prenatals to begin with. It's so that you can find the one that is the best fit for you, right? And so if this is making sense, comment below, just say yes. Let me know if this is making sense so far, if we are on the same page here, and what you think of this. So let's talk about how you actually use this idea. I think we all kind of understand conceptually, yes, foods all have different nutrients, our bodies need different things, but how do we actually know what our bodies are needing? That part is a little bit difficult. And so in my practice, that's what I do, is kind of figure out, what does your body really need? And so I have a bunch of tools to do that. I do a food journal so I can see what you're actually eating, which is always really interesting. Most of us think that we eat better than we actually do. These kind of one-off scenarios, we're like, oh, I almost never go out to eat. Well, when you start tracking it, sometimes you find out that you do more than you realize. So a food journal is a really great way. I look at symptoms to see if there are any deficiencies that we can find from that, which is a really cool part of kind of looking at the health of someone. And so a big part of that too is looking at your digestion, which people don't often talk about when it comes to fertility. You know, we're really focused on our hormonal balance. We're focused on these specific nutrients for fertility. But if your digestion isn't working well, no amount of supplements, like you could be taking the highest quality, best supplements in the entire world, but if you can't digest those nutrients, none of it matters. So looking at your digestion is a big part of this. And then I also do some tests for my clients. So most of the women that I work with, and most of the women watching this video, this is probably you, is wanting to be pregnant as soon as possible. And so I take that pretty seriously, and I'm a fan of test, not guess. Let's see what's actually going on inside your body so that we can set up a game plan for you. So obviously it would take a while to cover kind of all of this in this video, but one part of that is available to you now. You can do this yourself. What you can do right away is utilize something like a nutrient database and a sort of food journal to see what areas of nutrition your average diet might be lacking, so that you can kind of figure out where your weak spots might be and make sure that your prenatal is filling those in. So I wanted to kind of show you how this actually works. So here we go. So I went into Real Plans. This is the software that I use just to plan out my meals for my own family. Highly recommend it. I've been using it for about 2 years, and I love Real Plans. So I went in and just chose a day's worth of meals that I thought would be pretty typical. So we've got overnight steel-cut oats for breakfast. We've got a Cobb salad for lunch. And we've got stuffed acorn squash with sausage, kale, and mushrooms for dinner. How delicious does that sound? So I chose these ones because they are very common ingredients and types of foods that would show up in a fertility diet plan. If you've downloaded someone's freebie, someone's meal plan for fertility, these are like typically the kinds of foods that you're going to see. So I thought it would be interesting. I plugged in those recipes into Chronometer and wanted to see what the nutrient status of this recipe actually is. This is pretty cool. So we can see exactly what's going on with our meals. And so for you to get the benefit from this activity, I do not think that you need to be tracking your meals like in real time over actually 7 days. Just to get a good idea of like what your typical diet might be, just take some of your favorite recipes, plug them into a software like this, which Chronometer has a free account, so you can use them. You can use MyFitnessPal, whatever you like. I don't like all the ads on MyFitnessPal, and it's always trying to be like, you're eating too many calories. I'm like, whatever, MyFitnessPal, I'm gonna eat what I need. So that's just my little rant. So you can plug in kind of your favorite recipes, just a typical weeks of meals, to see where it lands, right? What nutrients tend to be higher, what nutrients tend to be lower, so that you can get some personalized information about what your body might need more of, because it's going to be different from someone else. Your best friend might do this same experiment and come up with completely different nutrients that are lacking in her diet that you might be fine with, right? It really is individual. So on our example here, we can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but like biotin is pretty low. Choline is, fairly low. And so what's important to recognize too, and you'll see this in the spreadsheet that I created for you, is this is going based on the recommended daily amount of nutrients. And it's really important to know that many of these are the minimum requirements, right? So for example, vitamin C, the RDA is about the minimum needed to prevent scurvy. The amount of iodine is about the minimum needed to prevent getting a goiter. And so these are not necessarily the ideal amounts, especially when we're talking earlier about if you're exposed to environmental toxins and you need more antioxidants. The government recommended amount is not taking that into consideration, right? So you need to be taking that into consideration for yourself. And so even these B vitamins, we're barely at 100% for most of these, right? Thiamine, we're exactly at 101%. This is for the bare minimum recommended amount. And so if you need more of any of these particular nutrients, you want to take that into consideration. Vitamin E is actually pretty low on here. And so if you are on my newsletter last week, I actually sent out a whole little email about vitamin E, what it does for fertility. When this nutrient was first discovered, I want to say it was 1922. I forget the name of the physician, so forgive me for that. Yeah, it's just not coming to me. They called this, it was two people who identified this nutrient. They called it anti-sterility factor X, was the first name for vitamin E, because they had just discovered it and they found pretty much immediately how important it was for the reproductive system. So they called it anti-sterility factor X, which I think is such a fun name, such a 1922s, kind of name. So we're pretty low on vitamin E, and this was a pretty healthy day's worth of meals, right? Our minerals, pretty low on calcium, iron, potassium. Potassium always surprises me. I always feel like there should be more potassium in my meals than there ever actually is. Okay, so I wanted to just show this to you so that you can get an idea of what's really going on, right? I mentioned earlier, like when I work with clients on their food journals, we often feel like we are eating much healthier than we actually are. And part of this also is that our food just is not quite as nutritious as it used to be. The soil is more depleted. We are putting back in the bare minimum nutrients into our soil, right? The fertilizers that we're putting onto the farms, it's the bare minimum that is required by the government. It's not the full, encompassing of all of the nutrients that would naturally be found in the soil if it had not been so depleted. And so our food doesn't have as much as it used to. We're under more stress. Our bodies have a higher requirement. And so this is why it's really important to just know what's actually going on for you. Know what the gaps in your typical diet are. If you can find things in food to fill in those gaps, by all means do so. And then this is what the prenatal is really for, is just to make sure that no matter what happens, if you have an off day with your food, maybe you're traveling, you don't have access to your own kitchen, to your own food, you at least have what your body needs in order to support your fertility, right? So that we don't miss out on any of that. So I wanted to keep this video brief. Download that guide. So it is parsleyandpumpkins.com/PCOS-prenatal, just singular. And check it out and see how your current prenatal stacks up. So I added in the 5 most popular prenatal brands in terms of they're kind of the professional line. So like Thorne is on there. I know some of you use them. Seeking Health is on there. That's one that I particularly like. And you can take a look at what I think is really interesting is you can compare the column that is the government recommended minimums and compare what these professional lines are actually putting into their prenatals. And then also read the column that outlines what these nutrients are actually doing to support your fertility. Because that part is so important too. We need to know what's really happening if we're, spending this much attention on our nutrients. We need to know what's going on. So if you enjoyed this video, please click that like button below, share this out with your friends, and consider subscribing to my channel for a brand new video every single Monday all about supporting your fertility naturally. And if you are ready to bring your hormones back into balance, have easy pain-free periods, and support your natural fertility, you can find out how you can work with me individually over at parsleyandpumpkins.com. And tune in next week. We're going to be talking more about prenatal vitamins and why not all forms of vitamins are created equal and why that matters for your fertility. See you then.